What's up, dudes and dudes, the internet? We are back again with more Genshin Impact. Today I'm going to be doing a brief tutorial talking to you about the new system that was introduced in version 1.5, which is player housing, or the Serenitea Pot. So first and foremost, you're going to have to complete the teapot to call home quest line. In order to do that, you have to have already completed the new star approaches, which is going to be part of the main storyline quest. The teapot quest is going to take you up here where you're going to end up talking with Madam Ping, and you're going to have a pretty lengthy quest, around like 40 minutes to an hour's worth, introducing the new 4-star character Yan Fei. You can end up skipping through that quest line if you just want to end up getting to the player housing. Once you end up getting the Serenitea Pot, you're just going to end up opening up your inventory, and over here in your gadgets menu is always going to end up being the Serenitea Pot. You simply just activate it and hop inside. So first and foremost, the Serenitea Pot is quite literally going to end up being player housing, where I've already taken all of these items and placed them all around. You're going to have multiple categories. You can always readjust everything that you have in the environment and so on and so forth. When you end up selecting your first home, you're going to be able to choose a theme. I ended up choosing the beachfront, which kind of low-key, I kind of regret it. The point is that you can end up unlocking the other themes, but you're going to have to unlock them through ranking. It's kind of like it gives you the first one for free, and then the rest of them are time gated. So let's actually talk to Tubby here and end up going through the list of all of these things while I end up kind of talking to you guys and gals about what you're going to be doing in terms of how to progress your house, because the player housing is essentially going to end up being very, very time gated, where you're going to basically generate resources over time on top of all of the ones that you're going to have to go and farm out in the open world. So let's talk about the trust rank. The trust rank, quite literally, you can consider this the exact same as an adventure rank system, but towards the player housing. So you can kind of see that I'm already rank 3, and there is 720 out of 1,000 points. Keep in mind about those points and about that little blue icon, because that's going to come into play a little bit later. But you can see that I have the cool island as my theme, and my current Adeptal energy or comfort of my area is at 4570. And we can see that if we end up opening up the main screen here, we actually have queen size. So the point is that you want to actually have as much furniture down as possible, and constantly crafting new furniture as a priority, and then furniture that you've already crafted, you can just craft to fill up space, because the more space that you take, each of the items that you end up placing down in your home is going to basically give you more and more points. And as you can see, the more points you have, the more realm currency you're going to accumulate. So as of right now, I'm generating 16 every hour. So that's what this little thing is right here, where I can end up getting the currency and, you know, every 16 every hour, and the current max capacity is 900. So as you end up increasing your trust rank, you're going to end up getting various rewards, the same as adventure rank, including a lot of different blueprints, some different options for, you know, crafting and so on and so forth. And in order to end up building your trust, you're going to have to keep in mind that little blue icon that I ended up mentioning right there under our trust rank. So before we get into the other topics, let's just very briefly go into create furnishing, just so I can show you guys that none of the items that I have right now have that blue icon. The screenshot that I'm going to show you guys is a blue icon on one of the items. So basically, the way that this works is any item that you are crafting for the very first time is going to end up giving you more towards your trust rank. And then everything else that you're crafting, you know, over and over and over again, just constantly crafting stuff to fill up more space in your player housing, is basically so that you can end up bringing up your comfort rank so that you can generate more of the currency. Currency, of course, is used in many different ways. You can go to the Realm Depot, and this is where you'll be able to buy a select amount of items from Tubby, but there is also going to end up being a merchant that will end up visiting every Monday. We can end up buying furnishing, which you can see there is a limited amount of, and then there is also going to end up being blueprints. So the blueprints, quite literally, is going to be, okay, I'm going to learn to be able to craft this table, and I can just craft it over and over and over again, given that I have the right supplies. Whereas the furnishing themselves, I can only buy this item 3 times, but I won't be learning the crafting recipe. So it kind of, I would prioritize these later, because new blueprints, as I mentioned, is going to give you new items to craft, which will end up increasing your trust rank. So let's actually get the straw depot right here, just because I can afford it. So if we open up our inventory, we can actually see that the new blueprint is going to be here in our inventory, and we'll just be able to eat that up, num num num, and now it is a craftable item that we can end up making. So now if I go to the create furnishing, you can see that there is this new item right here, and again, like I mentioned previously, it has the blue icon and shows that we will end up obtaining 30 trust from crafting it. So let's actually craft this right now so I can get into some of the other mechanics, which obviously you're going to see that there's all these different resources to craft all these items like the wood and stuff like that. But first and foremost, let's get into the creation queue. So this confused me for a little while, but basically what's going to happen is crafting this item, this one in particular, is going to take 12 real life hours. However, you'll notice that there is a speed up timer, and it says that it's actually limited to 4 hours. What this means is that if one of your friends ends up joining your world and talking to Tubby, they can end up actually decreasing the total crafting time of the item that is within the queue by a total of 4 hours. This action can only be performed once per every item that is within the queue. So if you have 2 items within the queue, both of them will end up benefiting from this. There is also going to end up being the option of using the Vial of Adeptal Speed, which the Vial of Adeptal Speed, you'll just slowly end up getting through the player housing, through increasing your trust rank and so on and so forth. I basically just use these so long as I am available, because why wouldn't I just craft this right now, and then I can just focus on crafting items for like 12 or 14 hours or whatever when I'm like going to bed, or I'm, you know, not trying to end up building up my my trust meter or something, right? So now if I end up going into my building menu, we can actually see that the new house is right here, and we can rotate it, we can just snap turn it and everything like that. And highly recommend you guys just get everything that you can right away and focus on making your player housing look cool later, because of the fact that you want to build up your trust, you want to build up your comfort level so that you're generating the highest amount of the housing currency that you possibly can. Now, another thing to keep in mind is very similar to the Adventurer's Handbook, because you know how I mentioned that the trust rank is basically like adventure rank. Well, there is actually something similar to the Adventurer's Handbook, which is going to end up being this teapot thingamabob, right? The Adeptal mirror, I think they call it. And basically what's going to happen is by completing specific objectives, you're going to end up getting various rewards. And once you end up completing all of them in a page, you'll be able to claim the big boy reward, which is going to give you a bunch of different items and unlock a bunch of different things as well. And then you'll end up going over to round 2. Now, I don't know how many rounds there's going to end up being in this book, but you can see right now that the only thing that's keeping me from getting to round 3 in my book is obtaining 500 realm currency, which is literally time gated. So before we get into all of the resources that are used through crafting, we're going to end up going to the interior just so I can kind of give you guys a little bit of an idea. This house right now that I have planted down, eventually we'll end up unlocking different housing so that we can end up having, well, completely different interiors and so on and so forth. And then there's also going to end up being some more important items, like you can end up using the cooking. Outside, I actually ended up having a forge, so you can use all of the stuff that you would otherwise use in Mondstadt or Leeway, but within your Serenitea Pot. So I think that as players end up unlocking more and more of these features, eventually you might end up spending a lot of time in here. So if we bring up the crafting menu one last time, we're going to be looking at all of the crafting resources. So you can see some of this stuff just requires ore, but then other parts are going to end up requiring wood, paper, and dye. So the paper and the dye is literally just going to be right here within the Serenitea Pot. You're going to want to go out of your way to start grinding up silk flowers every single day, because it's going to be required for the paper item or fabric. And then there's also going to end up being Sunsetia, which is just a Mondstadt resource, but that's for red dye. Yellow dye is going to end up being berries, which you can find out in the world, and then blue is going to end up being mint. Now, more important than that, there's going to end up being this wood item. So the interesting thing is that there's actually there's a whole bunch of different types of wood. It's not just like 1 or 2, and it's not a super duper simple mechanic, just because well, you're gonna have to kind of learn where each of the woods are corresponding in their location, because the game sure as heck doesn't tell you where they are. So just before we end up heading out, I want to let you guys know that you can at any point end up bringing up your Serenitea Pot so that you can end up leaving again, or you could just end up bringing up your map and cycling over to Teyvat, and then you can just literally fast travel out of here. Now, getting wood as a resource is going to be extremely simple. You quite literally just go and attack a tree, and then you're going to see one piece of log fall on the ground, and then it's going to whoop vacuum cleaner into you. This is where I would recommend that if you are doing this, to try and have your travel characters around. So 2 animal characters so that you have increased movement speed. Maybe a character like Rosaria if you have her, just because she also increases your movement speed during the night. And that's generally what I do when I'm going out and trying to gather wood, just so that I can end up having the fastest movement speed possible, because you're going to be running from tree to tree. So the super interesting thing is that each of the trees is kind of going to be region based. So all of these trees that you can see look like birch trees are quite literally birch trees. They're going to end up giving you birch wood. And then if you end up seeing one of these trees that kind of looks like it has moss on it, that's going to end up actually dropping a different type of wood. So that's going to end up being the Fragrant Cedar Wood. Now, moving a little further up the path, this tree, which as you can see doesn't have the moss around it and kind of has a different color and shape and everything like that, this is going to end up being Fir Wood. You can end up finding all sorts of these trees just around this area, but for the Fir Wood, I was able to find them around here, like around Adeptal Gorge, and just generally going to end up being over at Cape Oath and so on and so forth. The thing is, you'll kind of end up learning where each of the different wood types is as you play the game, because they kind of have them in specific regions. Like pine wood, near as I can find, is actually only exclusive in Dragonspine. Whereas other resources like other trees like bamboo are going to only be able to be found in Liyue. Now, speaking of the bamboo that I mentioned being exclusive to Liyue, I mean, this is probably one of the easiest ones to find, because there is tons of bamboo along this pathway. You can generally just kind of find them all around the place, but I mean, they're just in such mass quantity where every single one of these is going to end up giving us some bamboo segments. So it's not really that tough of a resource to end up getting. Now, you'll kind of notice that these kind of replace the birch trees in terms of just Liyue. You're going to find these as probably one of the most common trees. And these are actually going to end up dropping Sandbearer Wood. But Sandbearer Wood, you can find, like, it's just everywhere in Liyue. You can find it all throughout the Guili Plains or whatever, and all around the beaches and stuff like that. And last but not least, we got these bad boys, these super dark looking oak trees. And these are going to end up dropping the last wood that we can collect, which is going to be the Cuihua Wood. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but I don't really care. And that about covers the Serenitea Pot and player housing. I'll do my best to have all of the timestamps in the description, which should end up showing up as chapters on YouTube, so that you guys can end up just skipping to all of the segments that you're actually interested in. But I'll try to cut this video down to something that is not like half an hour long, and hopefully is something that you guys not only find entertaining, but also informative. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed, and good luck with your player housing, gamers. Sayonara and stay epic.